You're listening to The Watchers, a show where two women from opposite ends of New Jersey watch TV and movies about how if you have a choice between being a Lainey and a Vicky, always be a Vicky.
Always be a Vicky.
Always be a Vicky. Cut your own bangs. Carry a lunchbox.
She's so cool. Go for regular STI testing.
I have so much to say about the way this captured the AIDS scare in 94.
Jesus.
It's so fucking accurate, Andrea.
Well, it's so...
I was 19 at this time.
Yeah, it's accurate, but it's so safely removed. Because it's like these people aren't actually living in the same...
But it captures so clearly how the fear got everyone, no matter how risk close you were.
Well, especially because she says, I think it's so interesting. We watched Reality Bites.
Yes, we watch Reality Bites. I'm Jodie. That's Andrea.
And the thing about it is she specifically says a friend of mine tested positive. She doesn't say someone I slept with. It's not like...
But I kind of figured later on that it actually was someone she slept with.
I can't tell. Well, that's what's interesting. Now, I don't know how to... This is separate but connected. That's what's interesting to me about this movie is it feels both very specific and real, but also very pulled back and like the idea of at the same time.
I think we're going to get into this when we talk about the making of, but I really feel like that is the writer versus the director and rewriting.
100%.
Because when we get into the nitty gritty of like how this was made, this was, I mean, we can do it now. That's where we would do this anyway, right? So written by Helen Childress. She was 20 years old when she started this screenplay.
And you can feel it. And I mean that in every sense of the word, positive and negative.
Yeah, yeah. But so Ben Stiller was brought on to direct, and he did a bunch of rewrites with her.
I read 70 drafts of this
70
movie.
drafts. And he ended up having a pretty big influence on how much of what part of what story got told. So like originally this was supposed to be more about the whole group of people, more about Vicky, more about Sammy. Like
those are the moments where this movie really shines, I think.
I know.
You can feel the two stories happening here. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And it was about the dynamic of the four of them post-graduation, not just about the romance. And then Ben Stiller came on and was working on it with Helen and basically said, like, I don't think we can do the full story of the four of them. We should focus on Lainey and Troy and make it a romance. And like, he is originally the Michael character was supposed to be like a 30-something executive. And Ben was like, how about I play him and he's 20-something?
Yeah.
Like, okay, Ben.
Fine, Ben.
So like the love triangle thing, it does feel like it's like a different movie than what it would have been had Helen had like more control / been older, had more experience. Like, and I think that movie would have been even better. And that movie would have been like a cult classic for a different reason.
Yeah. All of the stuff that I love about this movie feels like her story. And all of the stuff that is really difficult to watch now, it feels like that's what's happening.
It's the Ben Stiller show meets, one young woman's experience.
It's so funny. And it felt, okay, I'm going to tell you my experience with this movie first and how I came to it and all of that, because this is your episode for sure. So I want you to have the space and all of that for it. This is a movie that I saw as a kid. I really liked. I can't figure out why I wasn't as obsessed with it because like Empire Records
was the year later, right?
It's only 1 year later.
Yeah.
And I think I was just more of the like idolizing the like kind of like post high school kids working in a record store, that side more than this side of it. But
I also wonder if it's visual. Empire Records has a different look.
It totally has a different look. This movie, that's okay. So a couple of things.
This movie looks older than 94.
It looks older than 94, but it's so, I remember this movie in my head because again, it's probably been maybe not quite 30 years, but like 25 years since I've seen this movie probably. And I remember it being like kind of like indie darling kind of thing. It's not an indie movie. Nobody in it was really I mean, maybe sort of like there's no Parker Posey in this movie. There's no like indie darling in this movie.
I mean, Janeane Garofalo became that from this movie,
right? But but it didn't have that, and also
and
it's
Ethan Hawke.
Gorgeous. This movie, like in my head, it's like ugly and like in my head, it looks like Laney's movie, the whole movie,
right?
But it's not. It's gorgeous and like.
Well, it's the cinematographer.
Oh my God!
Right?
His
resume.
Do you want to give the resume?
Yeah, this was his first film, his first Hollywood film.
Yeah, he'd done a bunch of stuff in Mexico.
Right.
But his first,
by Emmanuel Lubezki. I hope I pronounced that right.
I think that's right.
He was cinematographer on some small movies you may have heard of, like Children of Men by Alfonso Cuarón and The Tree of Life by Terrence Malick.
Really?
What?
Really specific, even if you don't, because I know people have feelings about The Tree of Life, but like they're like Gravity, which is another gorgeous movie. These like huge, really specific, and there's there's scenes in this movie like the gas station montage is.
I could talk about that for a long time.
Beautiful, like
it's a Hopper painting.
It's incredible. There's so much of that. There are like some shots. Anything in the diner, I think, is beautiful. Like, and I didn't remember that.
Weirdly, I didn't either. And like, I watched this movie for the last time probably at least over a decade ago.
Right.
But I watched it on repeat for most of my like late teens, early 20s. But it was not for the visuals. I was a photographer then, but I was not thinking about this as, like the cinematography. Right. I was like, why? How did they find my life and put it on film?
Right.
Like,
and you saying that because of course, like Empire Records is the first thing I thought of while I was watching this, and like that's a cartoon. It's bright.
It's the color palette's so different.
Yeah, and I was 9 and 10 when I was like falling in love with that movie. So
it's also lighter. Like it's a lot lighter. Like in terms of there's like a real existential dread in Reality Bites that is like it's so funny because it's so like roll your eyes at it, but it's also like so much more actually deeply felt. Yeah. In a weird way.
Half of this movie feels so sincere in what it's trying to do and say. Reminds me last week when we were talking about Parker Posey's character and being in your like late teens, early 20s and falling in love with Camus. Like that's and thinking you're so smart because of it, Troy.
Him reading the fucking existentialist book at the convenience store. I was like, I dated you.
Well, and it's funny because the movie isn't, I don't think, laughing at him.
Mostly no. I think mostly you're right. I think that there is a part of it, and maybe that's just me in distance, because at the time I was madly in love with Troy while also realizing that he was terrible.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right that it's, I mean, anyone that's not in Gen X, the obsession with selling out.
Right. Yeah.
It like I was reading a bunch of articles about like if you showed this movie to Gen Z right now or Gen A, they would have no frame of reference for what the fuck they're talking about because
and as another millennial too, on that side of it, I think we were the last. Like I think about SLC Punk is another movie that I've probably brought up a bunch that we should at some point watch, and it's that obsession. I think my specific age. I think 39 years old is the oldest, is the youngest you can be, and still have that kind of rattling around.
Yeah, because like for me it was, and for my like specific generation. So I am Gen X, but I'm kind of on the younger side of Gen X. I'm not, 75. But the
year you were born, not the age you are now.
Yes, exactly. No, I'm not 75 years old. But like the Seattle grunge scene and specifically Kurt Cobain and his influence on this idea of selling out, like there's this just feeling that we all had that like fame and the commercial success killed Kurt Cobain. Right. And what the fuck do we know? But
that's the story.
But that's the story. Ourselves. And it was like, everything was about how you would like lose your soul and your purpose for being if you got successful. and like how it was better to not be and be true to yourself. It was better to not make money and live like Troy. You wanted to never be Michael. Well, like have a job.
Well, and that's, I know.
And make compromises.
And be like kind of thoughtful and.
Yeah.
It is, I'm not saying anything new, but if you are somebody just watching this movie either for the first time or not doing research on every movie you watch.
Right.
Or like whatever. It's so funny that that's the message this movie is sort of saying. And like,
not even sort of.
Right. Is so directly saying, but then also Eleni is carrying around a big gulp the whole time.
The product placement is everywhere.
It's everywhere. And then that her problem with what they do to her film at the end is pretty much turn it into a Pizza Hut commercial when the movie is that as well.
It's a commercial, yeah.
But that's again where you can sort of see, I think, the tension in the movie playing out in the creation of that movie.
Well, and also, like, there was a great quote about this PR and the brand placement specifically in this article that I read from WBUR that I will probably bring up again later. When Ben Stiller talks about this, he literally says, like, he's not unaware of this ridiculousness, but he says there's product placement in this movie, but I don't have any problem with it because it never happened where they said, okay, you can put your product in, but you have to change the script. And then he says what I think is the most like honest answer, which is I didn't have a problem with it because any way we could help the movie monetarily that didn't impinge on the credibility of the film or my own integrity was fine with me. As much as I wanted, I wanted as much money as I could possibly have to make the movie the right way.
Right, which is for some people a sin. You know? Right. And for the people in the movie, a sin.
But he also said, it's very important that I think to the movie that these are real products you can identify with. The Gap, Big Gulp, things like that, Pizza Hut. And he said, Pizza Hut I wanted to get in. I wanted to make sure we had them because I was making a statement about quote-unquote tie-ins, and it was meant to be crass. I don't know that the Pizza Hut people knew that, but they went along with it.
Well, it's the scene in Wayne's World is like feels so directly tied to this when they're talking about not wanting to sell out and they do it's like aspirin and Pepsi and
right.
It's like people only do things because they get paid, and that's just really sad.
I can't talk about it anymore. It's giving me a headache.
Here, take 2 of these.
New print. Little, yellow, different.
Look, you can stay here in the big leagues and play by the rules, or you can go back to the farm club in Aurora. It's your choice.
Yes, and it's the choice of a new generation.
But he also makes a point, though, where he says, he said Diet Coke was written into the script. Helen lives on Diet Coke and smokes cigarettes, so we wanted to have it in there. This was from, like, the time. Because it was real. A movie like this depends on that because of identification, kind of as reference points. Which is true, actually. Yeah. Like, it makes... Like, if they'd had some, like, off-brand Big Gulp...
Yeah, Jodie, but like, we sound like the man right now. This is what I mean. He's right. I agree. Yeah. I think all of that makes sense.
I know.
I think it is important to the film, especially looking at it in 2025. Like, it feels so, like... a little time capsule in a way the characters in the film would at least pretend to be horrified by.
Yeah,
I think
totally.
It's just that like, it's like, hey Jodie, do you know the definition of irony?
It's a noun.
I know when I see it.
Yeah. It's so funny. The number of times in this movie where they said a line and I was like, oh, that's where I got that line from that I used in my vocabulary for the next decade.
I love that.
Don't bogart the can, man. Literally, Janine Garofalo came out of my mouth for a decade after this.
She's so cool.
Oh, she's the best.
And just so everybody knows, from New Jersey.
Yeah, from New Jersey. I actually watched an interview with her on Letterman from the time, right before this came out. And she mentions that she's from Jersey, and a bunch of people in the audience cheered.
Hell yeah.
She was like, yeah.
That rules.
So let's talk a little bit about, well, I guess the quickest synopsis of the plot possible, and then the making of, because I feel like that's really where it got interesting to me, because I have watched this movie at least 20 times and never read anything about how it was made. So
because it feels like if you're not watching it for a podcast and that a little bit like it's like, well, they put cameras in front of these people. That's how it was made.
Yeah. Well, it was the time of the real world also, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So, basic plot, group of friends graduates college into a dead-end economy of the 90s, which was very real. One of them gets a job as a basically PA on a set for a very cheesy morning show. Good morning, Grant.
Good morning, Grant.
And one works at the Gap. One gets fired from his job at a convenience newsstand thing for stealing a Snickers. And then one, we have no idea because he's a gay character that's just there to be the gay character. We'll talk about that later. But basically the two girls live together. One of the guys loses his job, moves in with them. Will they, won't they? Romance between the two friends, Lainey and Troy. Lainey meets Michael, who is the square to Troy's band guitar player, poet, existentialist.
Yeah, I'm like, he works at a cool TV network.
Right? I know, but he wears a suit and drives a nice car. And so it becomes a love triangle, which is like not what, now looking at it after learning all this other stuff, I'm a little sad for the movie that it wasn't, because I feel like I would have loved it even more. And I really did love this movie, unironically.
It feels
at the time
to me like Ben Stiller read a book about like how to write a screenplay and kept asking himself, like, what's the conflict in this movie? There's no conflict, and was like, well, it'll be a love triangle.
Yeah. I think also he wanted to put himself in the movie.
Totally.
And like, you know, they were looking for, or at least he was looking for, a third person for a love triangle, and was like, well, you know, we'll change the ad exec to a younger television executive in his 20s.
So fun.
Because basically it ends with what Teen Me wanted, which was she changes the commitment phobe Troy, who is a commitment phobe because he has such a tragic backstory, and his father dies, and he comes back to her and declares his love for her, and then they are happy. And that is what I wanted as a 19-year-old. But
do you think the movie knows? Because those last couple of scenes, their like last big fight together, it's disgusting, because he says like,
oh, he's abusive.
Yeah, when he says like, I might hurt you and I might leave, but I'm the only real thing you've ever had. And it's like, that's awful. Everything about that.
He's emotionally abusive throughout the film. Yeah.
Like, there's never a moment where he's not. Even like in the couple of moments, like they have that like sweet, really cheesy, a little overwritten conversation with the $5, a couple cigarettes and a cup of coffee, and they have
that
one
meant
little
everything to me when I was 19.
But it's like, of course, their one like real moment of bonding where he's being kind of nice and he has to blow it by trying to kiss her, even though, and like just all of that. But then that last scene where he comes back and he's in the suit because he's just come from his father's funeral, but it's like symbolic of him being a little more put together. But then we only get one other scene with them. It's barely a scene when they're in the apartment packed up, and we don't hear them talk or anything. Do you think the movie wants us to think that this is their happily ever after, or is it right, yes. And what I would love is a hint that what this actually is The Graduate. And it's like, now what? Like, we've chosen each other.
No, but that's not what this movie is doing. This is very much a happy ending. I know.
It's a real bummer.
Yeah. So that's the plot of the movie. There's really not much to it. I mean, like, she's a filmmaker, or wants to be. She's making a documentary about her friends. This man that is the corporate guy, like, manages to sell it to his MTV clone TV network, which of course they cut it up and make it something completely different. And she's disillusioned, and she goes back to Troy, who's a true artist and not commercial. And it's like, I'm saying it this way, even though I could not have more love for this movie from that time.
Yeah.
But it's like, obviously the whole plot is incredibly cheesy. It's the details that matter to me, not the plot.
I can totally see that.
But the background that was super interesting to me was, and it really kind of blew this whole thing open, because I was like, oh, okay, so this is what I was reacting to. And then this was what I was like emotionally manipulated by. It's like, there was the side of the movie that was like, felt so true to me that it was like they brought a camera to my friends and myself.
It's hard to watch some of it for that reason. It's like, it reminds me of our conversation about My So-Called Life, where it's like, it feels a little bit like making somebody read their diary out loud.
Yeah. especially when looking back on it, when you have the perspective to know how embarrassing it is.
Exactly.
But like, yeah. So like we said, Helen Childress started writing this when she was 20 years old. And it was just inspired.
You couldn't pay me to share something I wrote when I was 20.
Oh, me either. Oh my God.
You could not pay
Definitely
me.
not. Definitely not. But it was inspired by the lives of her friends. She's from Houston, which is why this was filmed there. I did read, interestingly, that like Houston was one of the towns that had a big boom in the 80s and was emptying out in the 90s. So when this was filmed, it was when Houston was like kind of a shell of the 80s version of itself.
Right.
And a lot of places were. Like, we talk so much about the '08 recession and COVID and everything that's happened since then, where we've had these big economic shocks. But for people that were my generation, this was the first big moment where we were suddenly super disillusioned. Like, we look back at the 90s as like a better time now, but at the time we were like, holy shit, we're in a war that we didn't have any consent for, and like we're watching it on TV for the first time. Like, I specifically remember during the Gulf War literally like watching infrared video of them bombing Iraq and being like, what is fucking happening?
Yeah.
And like, I graduated college in 99 into a recession. Like, you know, there was the .com bubble burst, you know, and like we had to go into like severe cutbacks at my job. I was lucky to keep my job. So, you know, there was definitely, and George Bush was a fucking nightmare. Like, and the way he handled the AIDS crisis, like the whole thing, that was like, there was a reason that Gen X was like, fuck the government, we're not doing anything, fuck everyone. Like, it's a sort of feels to me like a mini version of what's happening now with kids, where they're like, what the fuck? Like, none of this is for me. Like, this isn't in my name. So, you know, it was a different set of issues at the time, but it was like, you know, we were raised by boomers who had like rebelled against the Vietnam War and then turned into everything they hated.
They didn't sell Son, they bought in. That's also from SLC Punk.
Yeah.
But
there
that's
you go.
the story they were telling themselves. So,
yeah. So,
but
you
it's,
know,
the interesting thing to think about all of that in hindsight is in the movie, I don't know that they can tell really how and why they're reacting. You get a little bit of it in her speech, but it's just so interesting to see like all of that put on the screen as a result, but not super engaged with the, because it's hard to when you're in it. And that's the difference between like what Reality Bites as a period piece would be now. Like if they made this movie in 2025 looking back on 1994.
Yeah. I think her parents are kind of the stand-in for that. Like, they're this is what we're rebelling against. The factory job, the corporate job, the fancy car, what does Troy say? Working a line until he gets a tumor that kills him or something.
Exactly. Even just the fact that her parents are divorced is like, feels so like 90s commentary to me. Like,
oh yeah, everyone's
like,
parents are divorced.
But it's like a thing. Like now, you know, like it's What's he doing at that dinner, Troy?
He's her best friend. He didn't have anywhere else to go.
Like
they think that he is. He thinks he is. She thinks he is.
I wish that he really were, because that like is real to me.
Yeah,
just the like that kind of like tag alongness of the best friend, but
also the like when you're 19. And you've been friends with someone, or not 19, they're 22, 23, whatever. But when you've been friends with someone all through college, like, you do think that they are your best friend, even if they are completely toxic. And like, you know, 10 years later, you look back and are like, what the fuck? But yeah, the parents, Susie Kurtz as the like Southern mom is so funny.
She's really good.
All the side characters are great in this. This also had some amazing cameos. I'm sure that you know this, but like Evan Dando and of Soul Asylum, Dave Pirner.
Yes.
Yeah. Is like behind Janine Garofalo in that scene. But that's what I mean about it feeling like us feeling so seen by this movie, because it wasn't just like the story and the friends, but it was these little references they would throw into things that were so current and so like our culture, so to speak.
Reminds me of like if Party Girl if Ben Stiller got his hands on Party Girl, you know what I mean? Like, that's what would have, like, because a lot of it it does feel really real and like made by a person who was living it, because it was, and then also the Ben Stiller of it all.
Yeah.
Some other cameos while we're talking about them. I guess you can't call her a cameo because that's not, but Renee Zellweger being in it
as
for
Tammy.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
And then
I had forgotten about that.
Well, of course you had, because she's
like in a doorway.
But just, drawing all our little red threads in our giant Watchers map. You've got to put one in add another line to Renee. And then David Spade being so David Spade.
Yes.
In the Wiener Duda.
And Andy Dick, isn't it?
Dick, yeah.
John Mahoney as Grant.
It's really good stuff.
And Karen Duffy. She's in the end credits with Evan Dando.
That's right. They're in the like.
Yeah.
Also, at the end, you get the
just for the young folks. Karen Duffy was a VJ, a video jockey on MTV, and also a model and all of those other things. But she was very famous from MTV at the time.
And they have. They're like all of the like little MTV stuff is so fun.
Yeah.
But that like little parody at the end is so funny because it's hard to. I was trying to figure out, like, I think maybe it's in there so that we can really be solidified that Michael is the villain, because he's not that bad throughout.
Yep.
But then he does let them take her, and I think he's like it. I forget what the credit is for him, but he's either the producer or whatever on that. And it's like, oh right, okay, so we're really definitely supposed to think that he's the bad guy.
I think that's the reason for it. Yeah, it says created by Michael Grates. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that is basically to make sure we know that Troy was the right choice.
Right, because there's some stuff in there that just feels like Ben Stiller can't help but make a parody.
Well, I mean, he was coming from the Ben Stiller show, and like, his vibe just does not.
You can feel, that's what it is. You can really feel this stuff, because it's like the David Spade thing I think is funny, but Helen Childress didn't write that scene. That's a Ben Stiller scene, 100%.
It's absolutely feels like inserted by a different sense of a different sensibility.
There's just so much stuff that like tonally is at odds.
Yeah. I'm really sad that we didn't get more Vicky and Sammy. But
Sammy especially, it's like kind of a crime what they do to him.
I know.
But also, Steve Zahn's first like real movie.
He was so good in this,
He's
though.
So good. I love him. I know we've talked about him plenty.
Yeah.
Not enough, but we've talked about him on this show. What a joy.
As a young queer person who was definitely not okay with being a queer person in 94, his coming out scene, like, I understand now looking back how it's a crime that that's all he had in the entire movie, but it meant a lot to me.
Well, it's one of the realest, it feels like
he's like joking around with Vicky and playing it out beforehand, and then it doesn't go well. Paflag. Yeah. The way she says that was in my head for 100 years. Paflag.
Paflag.
Paflag. It's great. And it's like the idea that like your friends and the people that surround you are so much more like know you so much better and are so much more accepting of you than the people who raised you is just such a, like, it's an evergreen sort of feeling. But Vicky playing his mom in that scene, there's something so poignant about it to me because of the idea of like, even though Steve Zahn is not a queer person, like the idea of,
as far as we know,
yes, fair. The idea of your friends falling into those parental roles.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, when your parents aren't doing it, like there's a reason that like we call Melanie Linsky mother. Like it's not the same thing. She's a celebrity, but like those friend relationships that become family and parental and all of that, she's like play acting it, but it's actually really real.
Yeah. I was just going to say they're play acting, but he still gets to have that experience.
He still has her.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's
after
really
it doesn't go well with his family, he still has his friends who fully accept him. Like you would expect some toxicity in a different type of movie between Troy and Sammy. None.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Just fully like, we're buds, it's all good. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a great point. And I wonder what would have happened to them if Ben Stiller cared more about including them in the movie. Because I could see him writing it more as a joke, but just not being... I'm really being negative about Ben Stiller here.
I know. And we love Severance.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is not Severance. This is, you know, a very personal story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some fun alt casting for Vicky. Did you see this?
I did.
The other people that were up for it. Parker Posey.
Parker Posey I would have been all right with. She could have done it. I mean, it's such a Janine Garofalo iconic, like, and I my guess is she probably, like, I wonder what the character looked like on the page before Janine, but I could totally see Parker Posey. The other one, though.
Well, there's two more. Anne Heche.
Right.
What?
I kind of meld these two. These are the same person in my head.
And Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, that's the same thing. The other one being Anne Heche and Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, I feel like they both would have done the same thing with that character.
The studio wanted Gwyneth Paltrow. But turns out that Winona Ryder is the reason this whole thing got made.
Yeah.
Like, this was not going anywhere until she signed on. She, like, read the script and wanted to do something that was more like... I think she said she wanted to wear jeans on set for once.
It's like, this is right in between Little Women and... Age of Innocence, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And she is the one who, like, got Ethan Hawke involved, like, advocated for Janine Garofalo, not just for the part, but after Janine was a shit on set and, like, they fired her. She got her back.
I like that Janine's kind of like, I was hard to work with. I hate rehearsing. I have a bad work ethic.
Yep.
Not very Jersey of her.
Oh, I mean...
Show up and do the job, Janine.
That's true. But yeah, this movie was not going anywhere. It had been shopped around a bunch. They were like, a Gen X movie they kept just deciding it was a Gen X movie, which is so funny because, like, when you watch the interviews with the people at the time, especially that interview on Letterman with Janine Garofalo, she was like, I just want to say this movie, they're going to say it's a Gen X movie. It's not. It's a love story. It's like anyone in their 20s can relate. And I'm like, no, Janine, come on. It's a Gen X movie.
Yeah.
So
the least successful thing about this movie is the love story.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is cool, like, even just, like, you know, we talked last week a little bit about how incredible the soundtrack is, but the famous part, the, like, most talked about part of the soundtrack is, just while we're talking about kind of how everything came together, even the soundtrack kind of, like, Ethan Hawke was friends with Lisa Loeb.
Yeah.
And passed Stay on to the production team or whatever, and that's how... the song ended up in, like, I think, again, if you know anything about this movie, you know that, like, Stay blew up because of it. It's the first song to chart on the Billboard Top 100 with an
hit, like, number one.
Yeah, number one as an unsigned artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is remarkable. But it is sort of like this movie kind of, like, fell together in a really...
Yeah. Yeah, she and Ethan Hawke were in a theater company together at the time. Yeah. And the movie didn't do badly. It just wasn't like a quote unquote like classic hit that they were hoping for. But they spent like $11.5 million to make it. It grossed 41 worldwide. It made money, but it didn't like take off the way they wanted it to. Which is like, for some reason in my head, it was more popular than that, but that's just because I was the generation it was aimed at. Everyone I knew watched it.
Right.
But that soundtrack, while we're on it, oh my God. Like, and not just the soundtrack, but the way it was used. Like, the way the songs were incorporated was really smart. Like, I famously do not cry a lot at movies and TV. And the only part that gets me in this movie is when Ethan Hawke is in the airport and U2 is playing. Because at the time, that song was like... I mean, U2 was a huge deal. I was never a huge U2 fan, but there were certain songs that would that are just emotional, you know? So that got me again. But then also, you know, the dancing in the... I
was just going to say.
It's just so good.
It's My Sharona is...
I understand why if you are 25 years old watching that now, you're like, that's so cheesy. But it still worked for me when I watched it last night. Because there's like a freedom to being 22 years old and like running around with your friends, and it's the middle of the night and you're using your parents' gas card to get snacks because you're broke, and like
I wonder if that would feel, because it felt really sweet and genuine to me in a way that didn't feel like capital C cringe, but again, maybe like you said, it's just because that feels like specific to my experience. So
I still love that scene. And like you were saying about the visuals, when they pull out and show that gas station, it's a Hopper painting.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
And not really what beautiful. I remember. That's the stuff I don't remember from this movie as a kid. But man, that is beautiful. Yeah. Also, anytime they just, now this is turning into Goonies talk where I'm like, something else I really loved that I don't really have. But it's just like anytime they're talking to each other, anytime anybody is talking to someone else who isn't Troy and Lainey, it feels so real. The scene in the diner when, even if it is, I don't want to say real, that's actually not the right word. When Lainey and Vicky are at the diner together. I mean, these people are always at the diner. That's something else I love.
I know.
And they're having that talk, and Vicky is talking about like she feels like she's like the neighbor in Melrose Place who has AIDS and teaches them all. And I might be conflating two scenes actually, but and she says like, and they'll all come to my funeral wearing like chokers and
halter tops.
It's again so specific and so like, oh yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Is that also the scene where Lainey gets the call from Michael?
I can't remember.
And she says Melrose Place was a really good show. Is that all in the same scene?
I think it is. Yeah, because there's a couple of diner scenes, but I think there's only the one where they're in that booth, the two of them.
Okay. So then, also beautifully shot with the two of them across in that huge green booth. But so, and then she ends it by saying like Melrose Place is a great show, which is such a good laugh. But then something about getting a phone call at a diner because the guy you're seeing knows that's probably where you are. And in my head, I was like, it's so 90s. Either he called the house and whoever answered said, oh, I think she's at the diner with Vicky.
Right.
And then he looked the number up for the diner and called. Or he just assumed that's always where they are on Thursday night or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's so...
You could have always known where to find me.
Exactly. Not that I ever got a phone call at the diner, but it wouldn't have been shocking.
No, actually, honestly, I'm totally serious when I say, like, if my boyfriend at the time in 1994 had been looking for me, he probably would have called the Suburban Diner.
Absolutely. You would have called Starview if you were looking for me just about any night of the week.
Yeah.
And their reaction there feels so real because it's not common. Like, they're both surprised by it, but they're not, like, so surprised by it.
Right. And the waitress is so perfectly annoyed with her. It's just like, there's a payphone outside. It's just, that's the thing. It's those little moments and those little touches of like, that feels super accurate to such a specific experience that, like the diner lady.
It's really cool because this movie does feel really uneven. And I said cool, but it's cool to be able to pinpoint exactly why.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, it's because Ben Stiller got his hands on it.
Yeah. I know. That really was a revelation for me was when I realized like the reason that I have a cringe factor in talking about how much I love this movie is almost entirely the stuff that Ben Stiller added in. Just to cover the soundtrack a little bit in more depth. I just want to read the list of the people on it because it's fucking insane. Like to get this group for a movie today would cost you so much money. But the soundtrack has The Knack, Juliana Hatfield 3, The Indians, World Party, The Posies, Lisa Loeb, Crowded House, Lenny Kravitz, Ethan Hawke sings twice. I know.
Not great.
I know.
But that's the other thing. I think the movie thinks it's good.
I think it does too. Yeah. Dinosaur Jr., Me Fi Me, Squeeze, Big Mountain, and then did I say New Order? I think I did.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, New Order, The Tramps, Arrested Development. Like, it's
about 10 seconds of Violent Femmes. They picked just the nastiest song for him to like throw at her. Where I'm like, God, you're so gross.
When that came on, I was like, oh, that's right. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Like, just so
he's such
brutal.
a little boy. He's
such a baby.
Even the way, because like they finally have sex, and then he says, make love later, and it makes me gag. But they have sex, and then he bails because he's a big baby, and then they meet at the club. Well, she comes to the club where he's playing, or the coffee shop, whatever it is. And the way he approaches when she's talking to Michael, where it's like, now you want to talk about it?
So
like,
ugly.
Because Michael's there and you're feeling territorial. It's so gross.
Well, the one thing that I had forgotten, though, is that it is after he gets the phone call about his dad.
That's like pretty subtle and well done, I think.
It's really subtle. Yeah. But it's like, now watching it now, I was like, oh, that's right. That's when he finds out that his dad is sick and has to go home or is dying or whatever. But there's also a lot of sort of over the top, but I think kind of funny back and forths between Ethan Hawke and Ben Stiller, where they're like fully acknowledging what stereotypes they are and how different they are. There's the everyone dies all by himself that Ethan Hawke says. And then to Ben Stiller, if you really believe that, who are you looking for out here? It's like, I get why this is all cringe, but like when you're 19, there is nothing more romantic than walking around a city with someone that you love, but you don't know if it's mutual, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee and talking about like you and me and $5, kid. Like it's just, that was like crack at that age.
Right. I can imagine. Yeah.
Oh my God. It was everything I wanted out of like a romance. And now I look back and I'm like, oh God. Oh, just a side note that I saw that just relates to us and our podcast. The house that they filmed in. Did you see this?
No.
It was torn down in 2022.
Oh, and that house is so cool.
I know. That's what I mean about like, that's another touchstone for me in terms of the reality of it all. Like let's see. When I was the age to watch this movie, I had a group of friends that were like my high school friends that I was still in touch with. I came back and went to college at home, basically. And I think I mentioned this on New Jersey is the World, but like the two boys in the group were basically the two girls in this movie in terms that it was their house that we went to and stayed at. But like it was a house on the grounds of a gas station.
Yeah, you've
in
talked
New
about,
Jersey
that's perfect.
That had a literal round diner booth in it that we took out of the parking lot of the Twin Oaks Diner when it closed and put it in our friend's Ford Astro van. It was like hanging out the sliding door, and we drove it to the apartment. We put it in the apartment. The apartment was disgusting. And we would just sit around that diner table, that round diner table, and smoke cigarettes.
Chain smoke inside.
Yes. For hours, the overflowing ashtrays. We would sit on the floor and watch The Simpsons because the couch was disgusting because someone had spilled beer on it the night before. Like, it was...
This is a real generational thing of like where you and I have a lot in common. One of the things we don't share, I think, is me being an elder millennial, is that sort of like, well, you graduate and you move out and figure it out. It's like I didn't have a friend with their own apartment.
Yeah.
I think I was the first one.
Yeah. Well, because a lot of my friends didn't go to college either.
Right.
Like, so I went away to college, but then I came back after my freshman year and went to a state school because it was cheaper. And so when I got back, the friends that I fell back in with were the ones who hadn't left for college.
Right. And they were out working
and so
whatever
they got jobs.
And they had the kind of jobs where you probably could afford a shitty apartment if you had a couple of roommates. And like by the time I was graduating high school, you couldn't, you know? Yeah.
I mean, like one of them worked in a bike shop, like repairing mopeds. And one of them worked, where the hell did Pax work? I don't even remember. But so the two of them worked like, I think he actually worked at a convenience store. I think he was the friend of mine that worked at a convenience store. And the other one worked repairing mopeds and also as a pin chaser at a bowling alley.
Right.
And so the two of them could afford a shitty apartment on the grounds of a gas station where you could hear the dinging all the time as people drove in and out of the gas station. Like, that was, and we were probably breathing like the most toxic fumes possible in that house,
but like,
whether from inside the house or outside.
Right. And so like, yeah, that is like aspirational to me as a young person. Like,
Yeah.
what we had was the friend with the overindulgent parents who just let us live in their house. Like, I walked in without knocking, any time of day, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, all of us had gotten out of our parents' houses except me. But and there was a pool table in the house. I don't know where that came from. There was the diner booth, like the beds were on the floors. There were no bed frames. Like, people had their clothes in milk crates. Like, many of them were able to get out of the house and work shit jobs and rent apartments, but there was no real furniture that wasn't stolen from a parking lot somewhere. So we were like playing adults, and that's what felt accurate about that part of the film was like, they have an apartment they can barely keep because they're constantly like scraping together their $400 a week jobs, which is what we had. And like, it's not a nice apartment. It's nicer than what we had. It's movie nice.
But it's not even that. There are so many movies where I have a problem with, or TV shows, like Friends is always how do these people afford it? That wasn't a problem to me.
It's up a flight of stairs. Yeah. It's messy. It's like dark half the time. Like, there's never, a moment where you're like, oh, they are acting poor, but this doesn't feel like they're scraping. Like, it does feel like they're scraping. The furniture's old. Like, it's still nicer than it would have been, but it's not that much nicer.
Right. Well, and it's funny because my first, tension between me and this movie when I was watching it this time was when Lainey she couldn't win here for me, because it's when she's mad that she's getting the BMW, and it's like, oh, how nice to be annoyed, but also, if she weren't trying to, make her own way, I'd be like, oh, this fucking rich kid. She just didn't stand a chance with me.
Extremely spoiled in this movie. Yeah. I mean, her parents are cutting her off left and right, which is the impetus for all of the money stuff. But they could support her, and if they did, none of this would happen.
And they wouldn't let her be homeless.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So,
but there's all these moments of you need to find your ingenuity, kid, and your dad and I aren't going to help you, and that's the only reason that she is short on money. It's not I think with Troy, the implication is he is actually poor.
Yeah,
he went to college probably on a scholarship because he's supposed to be so talented.
He's so smart.
He majored in, he's a few credits away from a philosophy degree or something.
That kid who thinks this kind of boy has never gone away.
No,
who thinks because he reads a little bit that he's so smart and that everybody is beneath him because of that is the categorically worst kind of person.
I know.
And he's still around for sure.
He is still around.
Now he just gets to be on the internet about it.
Yep.
And that more than anything else about Troy makes me hate him the most.
I know. And I will say, to my own credit, that piece of who Troy is the one thing I never actually fell for. The guys that I was around at this time falling for and having emotionally dramatic relationships with were much more grounded than that idiot.
Well, that's sure
something. Yeah, exactly. They were working at bike shops. Yeah. So yeah, I think... Oh, just to go back to the Ben Stiller, but I'll for one more little jab, and then we'll move on. When they were talking about this much later in 2019, the 25th anniversary of it, the way that they put it in this article that I read was Reality Bites is a young woman's story. Helen Childress wrote the first draft when she was 20 years old, but the film's production was largely guided by men. Producer Michael Schamberg, at the time nearly 50, and Ben Stiller. And it says that, so Helen mentions that this character Sammy was originally meant to be a woman, but Michael thought there were too many female characters. So he turned into a gay man. Great.
Same thing, right?
Great.
God, Jesus Christ. Not just tough stuff.
Yeah.
There is not, I don't think, a single person of color in this cast anywhere.
Not one.
Not even in the background.
Nope. Not even with a falafel cart.
It is.
It's the whitest thing.
Oh,
and
boy.
I said this last week, and I thought I remembered correctly.
Yeah.
That it is the whitest movie in the world. But
in our episode notes as a little less gay and a whole lot more white than Party Girl.
Yes. I would say a lot less gay. I mean, like, there's a lead that's gay, but it's the only thing he is. You have a gay character as a lead, but yeah, like, there's a lead that's gay, but it's the only thing he is.
Oh, I read, yeah. It's really fantastic. Oof. Oh, yeah. So perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so funny how some movies, what am I, man, I'm really struggling today to get to the end of a sentence.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's okay. I read Roger Ebert's review. Did you find that?
No. I always
You always look for Ebert.
Yeah, I missed him this week.
He was not a fan.
It's good. This guy was an old man forever.
I know. 2 out of 4 stars.
Yeah.
So Reality Bites opens with dizzying footage of college friends goofing around on top of a Houston skyscraper, blah, blah, blah. The friends are about as inane and boring as most people are while goofing off in front of a camera. But what's remarkable is how badly the footage is shot. The camera operator has no notion of how to frame a shot, how to hold the camera steady, or how to choose subject matter. The results look like something that might have been obtained by the monkey cam on the Letterman program.
Yikes.
But no,
man.
This is in fact footage for a documentary that the film's heroine is shooting about her friends and their current situation in life. It's like, the documentary in progress is supposed to record the passage of Generation X from college into an unfriendly job market, but actually what it records is callow and superficial behavior by kids who do not inspire us to wish we knew them better. I'm surprised he gave it 2 stars.
Sometimes
from the way this is written.
Reviews when he hates a movie are great and also make me like the movie more.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh gosh. So he says the movie's plot involves a war between Michael and Troy for the love of Elena. Michael gets out to an early lead, but blows it when he takes Elena's precious documentary to his people in New York, who recut it into a typical MTV-type montage. Troy slowly undergoes a predictable change of heart, and the outcome will be a surprise to anyone who has never seen a movie before. What interested me about the film is how blind it is to its own realities. We are expected to accept Lelena, I guess, as a committed cinema verite documentarian in the tradition of Frederick Wiseman, Michael as a crass corporate monster, and Troy as a rebel who sees through the phoniness. This is all wrong. On the basis of the footage we are allowed to see, Lelena is not a filmmaker, but someone who simply plays with a video camera. Nor are the friends she photographs especially interesting. What Michael's people in New York do to the footage is an improvement, and Troy is a self-centered prig who is not half as clever as he thinks he is.
Well, I mean, yeah.
I know. In some ways, he's very much not wrong. the last paragraph is just the icing on the cake. The performances are all just fine. I wish they'd been at the service of another movie.
I think the performances in general are great for what this, but whatever. That's really very funny.
Ryder has her character nailed down, but is denied the really great scenes that would have resulted if anyone had called her on her lousy documentary. Oh, Roger Ebert. This was not for you, bud.
No. It is, though, like...
There are parts that are very accurate, though, to that.
Yeah. And he's right, and In Your Face TV is right, that the documentary is not good.
No.
But there's something so real about thinking when you are 20 that you and your friends are the most interesting people.
And that your sort of authentic filming style
makes it good.
Is revolutionary.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Like that you're the first person to ever do something badly and claim authenticity.
Right.
Like that's
so good.
Yeah.
I have something I want to talk about.
What's that?
Fall Out Boy. And you might think, Andrea, why would you want to talk about Fall Out Boy?
I would never think that.
Thank you so much. And so I'm going to play something for you and then give you a little background on it, just because I have to.
Okay.
Parents got divorced when I was 5 years old. And I saw my father about 3 times a year after that. And when he found out that he had cancer, he decided to bring me here. And he gives me this big pink seashell. And he says to me, son, the answers are all inside of there. And I'm all, what? But then I realized that the shell's empty. There's no point to any of this. It's all just a random lottery of meaningless tragedy and a series of near escapes. So I take pleasure in the detail. You know, a quarter pounder with cheese. Was it good? The sky about 10 minutes before it starts to rain. A moment where your laughter becomes a cackle. And I sit back and I ride my own mill.
So that is track 7 on Fall Out Boy's album So Much for Stardust, which dropped March 24th of 2023. It's their most recent album.
Wow.
It is everything to me, that album.
Wow.
And all of the marketing leading up to this album kind of like centered around the pink seashell. They started sending postcards with a pink seashell.
Wow.
They started hiding pink seashells with song titles written in them. That's how they revealed the track list of this album.
Oh my God.
Pete said, every fall I get this weird matriculation, like my parents are older, I'm older, my 14-year-old will be moving out soon. Thinking about time speeding, I thought about that specific clip a lot because there's a danger of going, what's the fucking point of any of it? Mm-hmm. That's a scary thought. It's easy to think we're in a slow march to the end. He says you have to do something to break out of that. You have to do something that's a little bit crazy. And that was right before. He also said we reached out to Ethan and we reached out to Ben Stiller, who was the director. They both approved. He said the pink seashell goes into the nihilism any of us could feel. And then Field of Dreams, this is other pop culture references in this album, is more of what you could do to break out of that nihilism, what you can do to break through it, find something crazy to do, make art, whatever it is. And then one other, this is now 3 years before the album went out. He says, there's a spit in the movie Reality Bites where Ethan Hawke's character talks about seeing his dad after he found out he had cancer. They talk about life, and he gave Ethan's character a pink seashell to help explain things. He realizes that the shell is empty and maybe life is pointless. I think there's a whole record from that perspective, taking part in these little pieces of life without the consequence. It's important to not forget those little granular moments of life. To me, there's a record in that pink seashell. And then So Much for Stardust is like, to me, one of their like top 3 out of almost 10 albums at this point. And so I just wanted to talk about the cultural impact of Reality Bites on present
no idea.
day. Isn't that fascinating?
That's great. Yeah. It's funny when you were talking about that too, it made me realize like, so that idealism of like make art even if life isn't meaningful, like that is the meaning of life. Like that's so fucking cheesy, and it's also literally my reason for being.
Yeah,
and like
it's cheesy and true.
My whole motto for everything in life. Like, so yeah, of course I'm gonna feel like this movie was meant for me because of that. I also want to point out that Michael, our villain character, basically says the same thing while sitting on the top of the car with Lainey, talking about the stars and astronomy. And like, he is like, I think that's what's so interesting about it is like, he's not a full true villain. Like he's mostly a nice person.
The movie wants him to be. Ben Stiller's a villain. Michael Grace is not.
Exactly. So I guess there's a couple of other sort of reactions to it that I think are interesting, or articles about it that I wanted to bring up. So last year, obviously, was the 30th anniversary of this movie, which is fucking crazy. And WBUR had an article about it written by Sean Burns, who was also born in 1975, was also 19 when this movie came out. And it's just like so... everything I felt at the same time. Basically, it got me right away because he wrote, hotly hyped as the first Hollywood movie about the then mysterious Generation X. The film follows Richard Linklater's Slacker and predated Kevin Smith's Clerks in the cinematic chronicles of the underemployed children of baby boomers, profiled in endless magazine think pieces as commitment-phobic latchkey kids raised by television reruns who rejected the values of the Reagan era via a bored skepticism often interpreted as apathy. Wow. That is the best fucking sentence about this movie and the time period that I have heard.
That's
He also said he had dragged his parents to see it and they like politely disliked it, is what he said. And he said, it took another couple of viewings for me to realize that Reality Bites isn't actually very good, but what I was responding to was seeing people who looked and sounded like me and my friends making familiar cultural references and complaining about the same stuff. Identification is a hell of a drug. In parentheses, he said, I'd get an even more powerful dose of it when Clerks came out that fall, a much funnier film that still rings painfully true for anyone who ever did time behind a cash register.
That's like, exactly right.
It's in the DNA of like who I am as a human, but so is Clerks. And I think I agree with the author of this article that Clerks like does it in a sharper way, but it's also much more male of a movie.
Yes.
Like the female characters in Clerks are like, we don't need to go there, complicated, you know? This at least is from originally the perspective of a woman. So. Yeah.
That Reality Bites doesn't get enough credit for that, I don't think.
Yeah, because like so many of these movies that, and we've talked about this before, that we had to attach our personalities to because we related so hard to them, were written by men and performed by men and from a male perspective. And so we always had to get over that hump of like, well, this is my life with a few changes,
right.
You know, like these are my friends more than this is me.
Right.
You know, like I was friends with people like the people in Clerks.
Right, exactly.
But I was not. Even though I literally worked at a video store and
it's just a different
related
experience
to Randall, but it's a very different experience. Yeah.
I just thought of something else that I don't want us to stop talking about this movie without addressing.
What is it?
And it's just, addressing isn't the right word, without talking about. And it is Lainey's brief but fierce friendship with the psychic on the other end of the phone line. Obsessed.
I had completely forgotten for a moment about that part of the movie. And as soon as I felt it coming, I was like, oh my God, the $400 phone bill, the 1-900 numbers. It's so funny.
Yeah, the 1-900 number is so specifically 90s. And then her just getting so caught up with her is so sweet. Because it's like, Lainey is like she's an asshole too. It's like Troy is the worst, but Lainey is a little bit of an asshole too.
Definitely.
But then getting to see her be kind of like sweet and caring about this woman while she's in the middle of this depressive rot on her sofa is really fun.
Well, and she gets so sucked in by this woman. And then when Vicky and Sammy come in with the phone bill and they like lecture, that they get kind of nasty there. But Vicky's lecturing her and she says, man, you are in the bell jar. I love it so much.
Really good. They do kind of they all take turns being nasty with, not everybody with everybody, but like.
But it's that long-term friendship where like, you know, someone's personality so well. She says, my little unemployed waif.
My little unemployed waif is really good too. Yeah. She's perfect in this. Yeah. It's just all of her lines are so good.
That same WBUR article, he talks about her. He says, on Vicky, the kind of girl who cuts her own bangs, wears baby doll dresses, and carries a lunchbox for a purse. The proudly promiscuous Vicky is a classic movie-stealing sidekick, and right away I found her intensely attractive because she seemed like someone who would be really mean to me.
Very good.
He does say later on that he met her once and she was very sweet.
No.
Yeah.
I hear she's, genuinely just like the coolest, nicest person.
Yeah. Yeah. There's another piece of lore around this movie that I really like, which is that so Ethan Hawke improvised. Did you see this? He improvised the poem.
This is really good.
Yeah, they were shooting footage that was in the home movie part, and he improvised a Gregory Corso poem, Marriage. And then when they looked at the final cut, he was like, hey, that's actually famous. We kind of have to get the rights to that. Mm-hmm. And then he says, a year later, this is Ethan Hawke speaking. He says, a year later, I was in New York and this old guy grabbed me by the face and kissed me. I'm Gregory Corso, he said. You are an angel. I was destitute, and out of nowhere, I got a check for $17,000.
That's so nice.
And he was like terminally ill at the time, apparently. It helped him
afloat.
Unbelievable.
It's incredible.
Random.
That's what I mean about this movie, about it kind of falling together in this really weird, kind of lovely way that ended up being, because it's like, even Lisa Loeb, like we talked about earlier, rocketing to fame because of it, and Corso being able to
pay off all his bills.
Oh,
there was a great quote about this PR and the brand placement specifically in this article that I read from WBUR that I will probably bring up again later.
Perfect, beautiful. Wow, you're a pro.
I'm a pro. What can I say? Did you happen to see the little clip on YouTube of Ben Stiller and Ethan Hawke behind the scenes?
No. And
it's on set. It's like a 3-minute clip, and it's the two of them joking around. And it's really hard to tell how much they're joking with each other because they're both really deadpan. Mm. But it was also cool because you see in that little clip the behind the scenes of them setting up the scene where Winona leaves the launch party and goes outside, and Ben Stiller's saying something about meatloaf, and she's like, it's not meatloaf. And they show the behind the scenes of that, how they lit it and everything. Oh. That was pretty cool. One thing that I don't want to let this go without mentioning is how much smoking is in this movie. And it was real. I mean, I was like a chain smoker at this time. I smoked like almost 2 packs a day for a while. So but she's smoking in bed. Ethan Hawke is smoking in the hospital. They're smoking literally everywhere. And it's also the real accurate gross part of smoking, like the overflowing ashtrays. It feels kind of gross, but also actually true to life, unfortunately.
It's in the hospital, the
hospital, I forgot about.
All of it is. I do think by then it probably wasn't legal to smoke in a hospital, but it seems like nobody would have cared enough to interrupt him about it either way.
Right.
I don't know.
I just do not understand why this moment needs to be Memorexed.
So Brandy.
You've reached the winter of our discontent. I just there's so many good lines, though.
That's one of my favorites. That's really good.
Also, when she talks about how Troy got caught stealing a Snickers, and she says that he thinks the establishment owes him a Snickers, I wrote, the establishment does actually owe him a Snickers. The establishment owes all of us a Snickers. Yeah. I am pro stealing a Snickers. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
He does open it like he thinks a cool guy would open it, where he just bites directly into it with the wrapper still on.
Oh my god,
that's such a to me it's such a high school boy thing. He's
for sure. Well, he also says, I smoke my Camel Straights and I ride my own melt.
That's what when we were talking about Fall Out Boy. It's really responsible of them to cut the cigarette mention. They say, so I sit back and I ride my own melt,
right?
Which is, I think, great. Culturally responsible.
Also, $5 an hour was the accurate wage at the time.
I made my first job. I made $5.25.
Yeah, I made $4.25 for my first job at the supermarket, but $5 was pretty average.
$5.15 was my first job actually, and then I went to the movie theater, and there I made $5.85, and I thought I was sitting pretty.
I also love the Whole Foods reference. You seem to have forgotten about your best friend Troy Dyer. He'll be working at Whole Foods. And then she says something about how Whole Foods would never hire him.
He says it's the Whole Foods and there are two things. Oh, and the Radio Shack.
Yeah. Oh, Radio Shack. R.I.P.
Yeah.
I also love when she's talking to her mom and her younger husband. Mm-hmm. She says, I was valedictorian of my university. And he says, you don't have to put that down on your application. But like the way she rots in front of the TV and then ends up on the psychic hotline, like that's a little too close to home as well.
It's very relatable.
I mean, we kind of said it, but like the gay stuff in this movie is like, I was glad at the time it was there, but it's also a little, like Janine saying at the diner, don't you wish you were a lesbian? Because she just hates men. Mm-hmm. They all walk out on her.
You know, we've seen much worse casual homophobia.
Yes.
That like this movie is actually, it's more just like lazy and not really thoughtful about queer people, more so than like actively homophobic, which is nice.
Right. And that the one storyline the queer character gets is his parents don't accept him.
Right, right. But he's not caught up in the AIDS scare of it.
No, thank God.
Which I think is like a different movie
and his
would
friends
have.
Don't even comment on it.
Exactly.
Like he brings home guys and they're not like making weird jokes. Mm-hmm. It's just what it is. Like, you know, he's at the diner with some date when Lainey shows up. And so like, and the promiscuous one is actually not him, which is a relief.
Yeah. So I will. And like, even with the like AIDS scare for Janine, it's not like in a judgy way, and she never gives us the impression that, and I mean this is a good thing, that she's going to stop having casual sex. Like,
I love that she's making a list, and the guy that just left, she's got a question mark next to his name. You go. She had a very cool room too. It was nice to see all of their original teeth.
It's a really good point.
All of them, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
They had such specific and interesting teeth.
It's such a bummer that we don't have interesting teeth
No
anymore.
one has normal teeth.
And then the only actor right now who does, it's been a whole fucking thing, Miss White Lotus, about her teeth. And it's like...
I almost said Emmylou Harris. That is not the same person. What is her name?
Emmylou Harris.
No. Amy Lou Wood.
You were... I mean, that's the same
Pretty
name.
close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I kind of think we got it.
I think so.
I got to bring up the house at the gas station. Like,
I got to talk about Fall Out Boy.
You got to talk about Fall Out Boy.
What else?
Like,
what else?
Yeah. I think we got it. I got to show you a photo of me with a grown out Winona Ryder haircut.
Yeah. We got to talk shit on Ben Stiller.
So yeah, I'm glad we watched this. I was a little bit worried that it was going to feel very like, what are we going to talk about? But I forgot how I really enjoyed rewatching this, even with all of the cringy stuff, just because it was like I said, this is where I got half of my catchphrases for the next 20 years. Like, I forgot how much this lived in my brain and how much it felt like me and my friends. Like, it didn't, I don't know.
Yeah. I felt good rewatching it too, like, obviously for a different reason, but it is a movie that if we weren't doing this podcast, I'd be like, I saw it enough. Like, I got what I needed, and it was...
And I kind of feel that way too. Like, I wasn't like dying to go rewatch this, but when I did, I was kind of like, oh, okay. Actually, I'm really enjoying doing this.
Yeah, it was fun. So this brings us to what we're going to watch next week.
Yeah, it kind of is a no-brainer after this one, I feel like. We were going to do it at some point, but now it's like, makes sense to do it now.
Yeah, it's funny. It actually maybe would have made a little bit more sense to do
before
last week because it is a year sooner.
Yep.
It's following a group of high school teenagers. It's following a group of teenagers on their last day of school. Also in Texas, though, in Austin. And a little earlier in our life. I guess this is technically a period piece. I've never thought about that.
It is, yeah.
But it takes place in 1976, but it was released in 1993. It is, of course, Richard Linklater's Dazed and Confused.
Yes. I was going to say Boyhood. No. It is, of course, Dazed and Confused. Parker Posey, again, might have made sense to do this week instead.
I'm so sorry. Did I say their last day of high school?
Yes, you did.
It's not for everybody. It's the last day of school. Some of them are freshmen. But Yeah. Parker Posey, like you said, it's another one of those movies. This cast: Jason London, Joey Lauren Adams, Mila Jovovich, Shawn Andrews, Rory Cochrane, Adam Goldberg, Anthony Rapp. Who else is in this list that we need to, like you said, Parker Posey, Matthew McConaughey, of course, Renee Zellweger, of course, like Ben Affleck, a lot of people who have parts that are a little bit blink and you'll miss it.
Yeah.
But it's,
I
mean,
it's a classic for a reason. It was also a big movie for me. I think before we got on mic, we were talking about how it is one of the movies that both of us rewatched a ton. It doesn't maybe have the same emotional connection for me, but as some of the other ones we've talked about.
I wonder if it's the 76 of it. That if it were set in the 90s, you know? Like,
yep. I think that's probably very true, actually, because this movie came out the year I graduated high school.
Yeah.
Like, I am timed perfectly for this run of movies, but it doesn't have the same, like, feeling of being represented on screen. So... But I'm still excited to rewatch it. It's been a while.
I have a feeling our conversation might end up being similar to this week's, where we might both realize we've got more in our blood from this movie than we think we do.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Where does this one show up for us in Yellow Jackets? Do you have that open?
I think it's in the pitch.
Makes sense that this would be in that original pitch, because they were still planning on this, or originally planning on Yellow Jackets, famously as being set in the 70s and 90s as opposed to
definitely
90s and 2020.
I can also see Van being obsessed with this movie.
Totally.
Like, this is a Van movie.
Mm-hmm, big time.
Like, this is the Van sense of humor. I could see her quoting this movie constantly. Mm-hmm. She might have in the show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But yeah, I could see this being a Van thing.
Yeah, I'm excited. This one has a very silly soundtrack. Because it is all...
I think I owned the soundtrack.
Foghat, Alice Cooper, ZZ Top, Ted Nugent, The Runaways.
Oh, yeah. Hell yeah. Leonard Skinner, Kiss, Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
Damn.
I want to take back saying The Runaways like that, because Cherry Bomb fucking, that song rules.
That's a great song,
But the rest of these are very silly. Lowrider.
Yep. Oh, that's the song I associate it with it the most.
Yeah, probably.
All right. So. Awesome. Next week, Dazed and Confused.
Dazed and Confused.
Can't wait.
In the meantime?
I can relive my weed era. It ended very badly.
Should we both get high before?
Oh my God.
So kidding. But it would be so
for the first time in like...
I was going to say, should we get some edibles? And
just, oh my God.
10 a.m. on a Saturday? Get
and I'm just paranoid the whole time that you're mad at me. Like, am I doing okay, Andrea? Why does my voice sound weird? Are you mad? What did I say? Anyway, they can find us at WatchersPodNJ on Instagram, and they can email us at watcherspodnj@gmail.com. They can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM. And
I'm at AQ Andrea Q. And another thing you can do is leave us leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We love to share. Here's one that says, I haven't read this yet, so let's see. That just popped up that I haven't had a chance to read yet. So I hope it's nice. It says 5 stars. I feel compelled to write an actual review this time. Oh, so this is a repeat offender. Andrea and Jodie are smart and insightful, obviously. They look at media through a post-feminist lens, but it never feels like a TED Talk or a bad Jezebel article.
Oh, that's actually like a really nice compliment.
This is so nice. It was during the Goonies recap that I realized that these women are geniuses. Okay.
Whoa.
I watched that film incessantly as a child, but they noticed details and connections that I never would have made. Also, I have the same list of favorite 80s kids movies and the same reasons for excluding certain ones. I would suggest maybe covering Solar Babies.
Oh.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
How did this get made, did it? But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember that movie scaring me a lot as a kid. Pivoting to Jodie's cat issue. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, wait. I need this.
Yeah, focus up, Jodie.
Yeah.
My cat was the same way with pills. Sometimes he would fall for the pill pockets, but I had to use 2 of them to conceal the pill.
Yeah.
I would initially give him a couple of empty pill pockets to establish trust.
Oh my God.
Then immediately betray that trust by giving him the 2 smushed up ones containing the pill. Didn't always work, but it was the best I could do. Also, with regard to Yellow Jackets, my big 3 are Misty Sun, Natalie Moon, Van Rising. That's a really good big 3.
It is, yeah.
I've yet to reveal mine on the podcast. I'm saving it.
I will say that the butter trick, she's gotten too smart for it.
Cats.
She, last night, managed to lick all the butter off of it and leave the pill. And so I did, though, find... So she doesn't like those squeeze treats, but I found one from Churu. Nobody cares, but everybody turned the podcast off. But for the cat people, I found one from Churu that is not in the squeeze tube. It's in like a little pouch. Oh. And it's like, I guess it's stinky enough. It's tuna and salmon. She hadn't liked any of the stuff that I had tried, but I put a little bit on a plate for her the other night, and she like licked the whole thing. Aww. So after she licked the butter off of the pill pocket, I then covered it in the churro, and she ate it. So I'm having to adapt. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to stay one step ahead of a cat with a tiny brain. Uh-huh. And so far, I'm succeeding. But that brain
is very focused, is the thing.
It's very focused on not doing what I want it to do.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So
she has her follow-up vet visit on Monday, so everyone cross their fingers for Charlie.
Maybe you can try playing a shell game of pill pockets, like our listener there just suggested. And thank you so much for that review.
Yes, that was very sweet. Outside of the cat insight.
Which is also very sweet.
Yes. All right, well, I guess that's going to do it for us.
Yeah, we are Audi 5000.
We are Audi 5000, man. We will see you next week in the field at the cake party.